In 2020, the most prestigious sporting event in the world is heading to Tokyo. The Olympics as we know them today originated in Athens in 1896, based on the Greek games played more than 1,000 years ago. Over the last century, various sports have been added as they become more and more mainstream, with athletes wanting to compete in them. In the 2020 Olympics, for example, the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, have opted to include karate, surfing, and skateboarding to Japan's Olympic roster. The lineup of sports changes frequently, with softball leaving in 2005 but making a return for 2020, bowling present in Seoul in 1988 but never before or since, and even golf and rugby were briefly discontinued only to be voted back in Rio for 2016.
Here comes Zane Davids on the charge. Zane Davids! Oh, it's Davids beating Goliath here.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
But while the inclusion of some of these events may be contested, their status as a sport is not. Well, maybe a lot of you, like us, take offense to golf being called a sport, but that's not an argument we're gonna win. And like the rich people's famous pastime of hitting a ball into a gopher hole, there is another activity enjoyed by a very specific group of people which often gets a rough deal when it comes to being professionally recognized: eSports.
One more shot as Wolf wants the glitter lands. Bang, almost down! Barrier comes in! King! Oh, my first blood! On to Bang! Misfits pull the trigger!
Ever since the eSports boom, its status as a sport, or even a legitimate thing to do, has been hotly debated. But now there are some very real steps being taken toward including esports in the 2024 Olympics in Paris. French officials have said that young people are passionate about esports, and so they should at least have a conversation about its inclusion. In 2014, ex-creative officer for Blizzard, Rob Pardo, said that he wholly believes that one day esports would make it into the Olympic lineup, only to be argued with directly by the president of ESPN, John Skipper. Skipper denied that esports were a sport, instead claiming that it was only a competition, despite broadcasting huge League of Legends tournaments on his own network. If even the people who endorse esports are skeptical about its status, it begs the question, what chance is there to turn the rest of the population onto it?
We had people who were outside, minus 12 degrees, they were ready to get in here. It is now packed, it is sold out wherever you might be in the world.
The initial reaction, at least my initial reaction, was the Olympics have always been associated with physical prowess and athleticism. Who can run the longest, throw the fastest, hit the hardest, not click out the most actions per minute. Video games are also pretty violent. Even relatively tame games like Overwatch, StarCraft, or League of Legends show death and violence with two teams trying to kill each other. Hockey has that too, but it also has all of the athletic requirements, so it gets a pass. While video games definitely fall into the category of friendly competition, the worlds within the game universes themselves are a very different story. And it's not just sports snobs or Jack Thompson who rejects the idea. Gamers themselves are just as confused about the notion of video games in the Olympics.
So this is a question for the whole team. Do you guys consider yourselves to be professional computer game players or athletes?
운동선수가 아니고 저는
So, what are the arguments in favor of esports being alongside traditional sports in the Olympics? Well, for one, esports, just like traditional sports, are incredibly competitive. In fact, all-time great Olympian Michael Phelps recognizes the high level of competition involved in competitive gaming and even presented the Best Esports Player Award to Coldzera at the 2016 Game Awards, saying, quote, "There is absolutely no question to him the level of skill, training, and devotion it requires to become a professional gamer," and calling esports players fellow athletes. That's pretty cool. Talk about a ringing endorsement.
There's absolutely no question to me the level of skill, training, and devotion it requires to become a professional gamer. Tonight, I'm here to pay tribute to 5 fellow athletes who have demonstrated incredible performance in 2016.
If we use the current esports climate as a model, it's not hard to see why people feel this way. Motor skills and mental acuity are essential to professional gamers. Remember, we're not just talking about really good gamers, we're talking about the best gamers in the world. Technically, the best gamers that have ever lived. You might have a few games that you consider yourself godlike in, but believe me, a professional gamer in the same game would annihilate you without batting an eye.
They are not slowing down. 1, 2, 3, the coup de grace, and Fnatic are moving on to the groups.
What I'm trying to say is that it's easy to argue that professional gaming can be a real sport, but esports also shouldn't be so easily disqualified. The real problem, however, isn't even a question of tradition or physical aptitude. The only hurdle that esports has to overcome is the stigma surrounding gaming as a whole. It's an uphill battle against public opinion. Even people inside the gaming industry are not convinced about people earning Olympic gold medals through esports competitions. Oh sure, professional gamers and companies who have esports platforms have a vested interest in seeing esports make it into the Olympics, but that's because they have money to make. Also, not to sound too cynical here, but so does the Olympics, and tradition only matters up to a point. But that money will only come when audiences and fans who ultimately support the Olympics are able to get behind video games being associated with Olympic medals. 2024 may seem like a long way away, but acceptance of video games as a traditional sport is even further away. But we honestly believe that that's where the conversation is going to end up in the long run.
So we really wanted to build stages where players can shine, where they can be celebrated as stars and follow their passion.
In South Korea, esports are basically the country's de facto national sport, and the players there are treated like celebrities. It's the Western bodies of the IOC and Western countries who are less likely to accept the popularity of esports. In Korea, esports players are treated like athletes, while in Europe and North America, players constantly have to explain, justify, and defend their choice of profession to people who are not familiar with the scene. Inclusion in the Olympics wouldn't fix the problem, but it would be a huge step in the direction of proving the validity of esports.
Video gaming, it's not just one sport. It's like having a football team and a tennis team and a cricket team all in one.
Of course, esports can't make it to the Olympics until they're treated like real sports, so the whole thing is just one vicious cycle. Esports has been called the first major sport to be invented in a century, described as the new world sport. Played in sold-out stadiums and huge arenas, live-streamed around the world to hundreds of millions of fans, it's getting hard for people to deny the popularity of this new mode of competitive entertainment. While we'd love to see esports join other competitions on the world stage because of the effect it would have on public perception, the truth is that it would fundamentally change the Olympics, probably forever. I honestly believe that change is coming, but not in 2024 or 2028, maybe not even until 2077, but it is coming.
Esports was already connecting hundreds of millions of people across the globe, and with the internet's colossal reach, it's now growing at a rate that televised sports may never catch up to.
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.